Someone wants George Russell dead, but who would dare? In a world ruled by wealth, power, and hidden grudges, not even New York's richest man is safe. In episode 7 of the Gilded Age season 3, the glittering surface of high society cracks open. And beneath it, secrets turn deadly. Today, we break down every twist and clue that leads to one burning question. Who tried to kill George Russell? Episode 7 opens in a world that seems perfectly calm on the outside. Morning light falls on grand mansions, maids rush down hallways, and carriages roll through clean streets. But right away, the show gives us a feeling that something is off. There's tension in the air, and it's more than just gossip over tea. From the first scene, we can tell this episode is going to be different, darker, sharper, more dangerous. We see George Russell at his desk, reviewing railroad contracts. He looks tired, but not in the usual way. This time, he seems deeply distracted. There's something on his mind, and it's not just business. He's been hearing whispers, talk of betrayal, of secret meetings, of deals being made behind his back. George has built an empire, but in this moment, we sense he knows that empire is under threat. The music is subtle, but it adds to the mood. It's quiet, steady, but with a low, uneasy hum, like a warning. Then we move to Bertha Russell. She's at breakfast, speaking with her daughter Gladys. Bertha is always focused, always ambitious, but this time, even she seems slightly out of step. She asks where George is. The way she asks, softly but sharply, makes us wonder, is she worried? Does she know more than she lets on? Gladys doesn't seem concerned. She mentions something about a late night and shrugs it off, but again, the show is doing something smart here. It's giving us clues without spelling them out. Outside the Russell mansion, the camera follows a carriage moving slowly past the gates. It's just a passing shot, easy to miss, but the camera lingers on it for 1 extra second. That's all it takes for our instincts to tingle. Someone is watching. Or maybe waiting. As the episode continues, we shift to the Van Ryn house. Marian is in the drawing room, sorting through letters. She seems peaceful at first, but then she opens one, and her face changes. We don't see the full contents, only a flash of the paper and the word danger in bold ink. The letter is unsigned. Marian quickly hides it in a book. No one notices. Not yet, but we now know something serious is unfolding, and Marian might be caught in the middle. Back at the Russell household, George meets with a group of men in his office. Most of them are dressed in fine coats, but one man stands out. He's rougher, more nervous. He's here to speak about a land deal, but his hands shake slightly as he speaks. George notices. He doesn't say anything, but the camera shows his eyes narrowing. This is another clue. Something in this deal doesn't feel right, and George knows it. The scene closes with George stepping outside for a breath of fresh air. He looks out over his estate, silent. The world is still, but we can feel it. The threat is near. The episode has only just begun, but already danger is circling. This opening sets the tone for everything that follows. We're no longer just watching parties and polite arguments. Episode 7 invites us into a deeper mystery, one where money can't buy safety, and loyalty may be a lie. The Gilded Age has always shown us how power works, but now it's showing us what happens when that power is attacked. George Russell has never been a man to back down. He's faced resistance from old money elites, battled railroad tycoons, and built his fortune brick by brick in a city that never truly accepted him. But in this episode, something shifts. The usual fire in his eyes is still there, but now it's mixed with suspicion. He's not just fighting for control, he's fighting for survival. We see George walking through one of his construction sites early in the episode, speaking to workers and foremen. At first, it feels like business as usual. He inspects the site, gives sharp orders, and asks for updates on delays. But then, one of the engineers hesitates. He mentions a delay that wasn't scheduled. George stops walking. His voice lowers. What kind of delay? He asks. The answer. Someone changed the delivery route for key materials without approval. A small issue, maybe, but George knows better. In his world, there are no accidents. Not anymore. Asterisk back at the office, George reviews financial reports and legal notices. Something isn't adding up. He notices a sudden drop in stock value for one of his investments, a railway company he thought was solid. He flips through pages, marking details, his expression turning harder with each second. Then he pauses. A name stands out, someone he hasn't seen in a while, Charles Fane, a former partner who disappeared after a failed deal 2 years ago. Why is his name back in the paperwork now? Why now? Asterisk meanwhile, Bertha visits George during lunch. It's a short scene, but important. She casually mentions that someone at a recent dinner made a strange comment about George being too powerful. For his own good, George brushes it off, but not entirely. His tone is clipped, his answer's short. Bertha notices, but doesn't press. The conversation ends, but the silence that follows speaks louder. Something is clearly building beneath the surface, tension not just between George and his enemies, but within his own home. Asterisk as the day goes on, George receives a visitor. It's Ward McAllister, usually more concerned with society gossip than business, but this time he brings a warning. There's talk, Ward says, choosing his words carefully. Whispers in certain halls that you've made too many enemies too quickly. George smiles, but it's the kind of smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He thanks Ward, but we can tell he's unsettled. Not by the warning itself, George is used to threats, but by the timing. All these hints, all these messages, all coming at once. Asterisk later in the evening, George is alone in his study. He pours a glass of brandy and stares into the fireplace. We hear only the crackle of flames. Then, from outside, a soft sound, a creak. Maybe a footstep. George stands tense. He opens the door and steps into the hallway. Nothing, just shadows. But when he returns, the window in his study is slightly ajar. It wasn't before. Asterisk, this isn't just paranoia anymore. This is real. Someone is watching. Someone got close. Asterisk, as the camera pulls back, we understand what this episode is doing. It's showing us how the powerful man at the top, the one who once seemed untouchable, is now the one in the crosshairs. George Russell is a brilliant strategist, but he's now facing something he can't control with money or threats. The danger is personal, it's silent, and it's getting closer. Asterisk, this section of the episode lays the foundation for the big moment to come. We don't yet know who is behind the attack, but the show is giving us all the signs. George's empire is shaking, and someone, somewhere, is pulling strings from the shadows. Asterisk, everything in episode 7 builds up to one chilling moment. The attempt on George Russell's life. Asterisk, it begins subtly, just like the rest of the episode. Nothing loud. Nothing obvious. George is on his way to a private meeting with city officials to finalize a new land deal. It's a routine trip, nothing unusual. The carriage is ready. The driver is familiar. His security detail, as always, is nearby but discreet. But just before he leaves, a servant rushes up with a small envelope. Argent, the man says. George opens it quickly. It's a note, no signature, no seal, just 5 words. Don't go to the meeting. Asterisk, he stares at the note for a moment, confused. Is it a threat, a warning, a trick? Asterisk still. George isn't the kind of man to be frightened by anonymous letters. He crumples the paper and leaves. But this scene is heavy with tension. The music slows down. The camera lingers on the letter, now dropped on the floor. And in the background, we catch a figure moving in the shadows, watching. Asterisk, the next scene shows the carriage rolling through a narrow road near the outskirts of the city. It's raining lightly. The streets are slick. The lamps dim. George is seated inside, going over documents. Outside, we see another carriage slowly gaining on them. It's dark. The driver is hooded. No one in George's group seems to notice. Then, without warning, boom, a loud bang. The horses rear up. The carriage jerks to the side, asterisk a gunshot. An explosion, we're not told immediately. The screen shakes. They're shouting. The coachman tries to steady the horses, but another loud sound echoes, this time clearer. It's a rifle. Someone is shooting, aiming for George's carriage. Asterisk inside. George ducks down just as the window shatters. Glass flies everywhere. A guard pulls him to the floor. Another bullet tears through the side of the carriage. Chaos breaks loose. The guards return fire, trying to locate the shooter. The second carriage turns sharply down an alley and disappears into the fog. Asterisk moments later, the carriage screeches to a halt in front of a police station. George steps out alive, but visibly shaken. His coat is torn. There's a small cut on his forehead. His face is pale, not from fear, but from fury. He knows this wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a random act. This was planned. Someone wanted him gone. Asterisk. Inside the station, the officers begin asking questions. George doesn't waste time. Find the driver of that second carriage. Find anyone who knew about my meeting. He isn't just giving orders. He's hunting. Asterisk. As investigators look into the attack, small details start to surface. The carriage George rode in had its route altered last minute. The guard assigned to check the weapons hadn't shown up that morning. And most telling of all, one of George's top advisors had mysteriously resigned 2 days earlier. Citing personal reasons, the pieces are falling into place, but the picture is still unclear. Asterisk. News of the attempt spreads quickly. That evening, Bertha hears about it from a guest at a charity event, not from George. Her reaction is quick, but cold. She excuses herself immediately and heads home. When she arrives, George is sitting silently in the parlor, still in his torn coat. They don't speak right away. When they finally do, Bertha asks the question on everyone's mind. Who would want you dead? Asterisk. George's answer. Take your pick. Asterisk. That one line says everything. Over the years, he's made more enemies than he can count in business, in politics, even in high society. And now, one of them has made a move. Asterisk. As the episode slows toward its final scenes, the mood changes. There's less talking, more silence. We see the faces of people who may know more than they admit, a quick glance from a rival at a club, a tense handshake from a fellow businessman. No one says anything loud, but the truth is there in the looks, the gestures, the half smiles. Asterisk. The final scene is powerful and quiet. George stands at his window, staring out at the city. Rain still falls. His reflection is clear in the glass, strong, proud, but now marked by doubt. Behind him, on his desk, is the note that started it all. Don't go to the meeting. It's now smoothed out and placed neatly under a glass paperweight. He didn't listen, and it nearly cost him his life. Asterisk. With this moment, the show leaves us on edge. George Russell survived, but for how long? And more importantly, who pulled the trigger? Now that the smoke has cleared and George Russell has narrowly escaped an assassination attempt, one question remains: who did it? The Gilded Age is known for its layered storytelling, power plays behind silk curtains, secrets traded in whispers. Episode 7 doesn't give us a direct answer, but it gives us just enough to build a list of suspects, and each one has a reason to want George out of the way. Asterisk. Let's break down the top 3 suspects. Asterisk. Suspect number 1, Charles Fane, the ghost from the past. Asterisk. Charles Fane once stood beside George as a trusted business partner until a bitter fallout over a failed rail project drove him into the shadows. We haven't seen him in a while, but suddenly, his name is back, buried deep in those rail contracts George reviewed earlier in the episode. Why would it show up now? Asterisk some fans believe Charles has been plotting a quiet revenge using shell companies to manipulate the market. If he found out about George's upcoming meeting, it's not hard to imagine he might try to sabotage it permanently. Remember the unsigned resignation letter from one of George's senior advisors? That advisor used to work directly with Fane. That's not coincidence. That's a thread. And Fane may be the one pulling it. Asterisk motive, revenge. After all, George's empire was built on the ashes of Charles Fane's career. Asterisk suspect number 2. Richard Clayworth, the political snake. Asterisk Clayworth is a rising political figure who's been publicly opposing George's railroad expansion, claiming it's corrupt, unsafe, and bad for the people. He's painted himself as a man of the people, but we've seen the truth. He's just as power-hungry as the businessmen he criticizes. Asterisk, in episode 7, Clayworth is mentioned in passing during a tense city council conversation. A small detail, but telling. He's lobbying hard to stop George's latest land acquisition, the one tied to that secret meeting George attended. Some viewers caught something even more interesting. The city official who set up the meeting with George used to be on Clayworth's campaign staff. That connection, huge. Asterisk motive, political elimination. If George is gone, Clayworth's path to power is wide open. Asterisk suspect number 3, Mrs. Winterton, the scorned socialite. Asterisk she may not seem dangerous at first glance, but Mrs. Winterton has been quietly building influence in society, especially after her humiliating public feud with Bertha Russell last season. She's always been ambitious, always looking for an opening. But this season, she's become something more, calculating, cold, and strangely connected. Asterisk, in episode 7, she's seen hosting a private gathering where George's name comes up, and not in a flattering way. One guest, a foreign investor, makes a vague joke, New York won't be ruled by railroads forever. Everyone laughs, but Mrs. Winterton's smile lingers just a second longer. Later in the episode, we catch her speaking in private with a mysterious man who speaks in a thick European accent, someone we haven't seen before. That scene ends abruptly, but not before the man hands her a black envelope. Asterisk motive. Bertha, the attack on George may not be about business, it may be about vengeance, aimed at breaking the Russell family's hold on society. If George falls, Bertha's influence crumbles with him. Asterisk bonus theory. An inside betrayal. Asterisk there's also a darker theory that someone inside George's own circle may be behind the attempt. The bodyguard who missed his shift, the secretary who slipped away early, even someone in his family. We're not saying it's Bertha or Gladys, but with the way this show works, no betrayal is off limits. After all, George received a warning note. Someone knew what was coming. The real question is, was that person trying to save him or scare him? Asterisk the genius of episode 7 is how it leaves us hanging but not helpless. Every glance, every phrase, every bit of silence is a breadcrumb. The writers are challenging us to put the puzzle together before episode 8 does. Asterisk, as of now, Charles Fane feels like the most likely candidate, the business angle, the timing, the paper trail. But Clayworth's political ambition and Mrs. Winterton's quiet scheming can't be ignored. All 3 suspects have motive, all 3 had opportunity. And all 3 had been circling George for months, waiting for him to let his guard down. Asterisk, but one thing is clear, this attack wasn't random, it was planned. It was personal, and it failed this time. Asterisk, while George Russell may be the target, he's not the only one shaken by the events of episode 7. Around him, the world of the Gilded Age begins to shift in quiet but powerful ways. The attempted assassination sets off a ripple effect, changing loyalties, opening old wounds, and pushing characters into corners they may not escape from. Asterisk, let's start with Bertha Russell. Asterisk, Bertha has always been the queen of control. Every dress, every dinner guest, every whispered alliance carefully chosen. But this episode reveals something deeper, fear. After learning about the attempt on George's life, Bertha doesn't cry. She doesn't panic. She does something far more telling. She goes silent. Asterisk, when she arrives home and sees George sitting alone, hurt and bruised, there's a long pause. They don't speak like husband and wife. They speak like two generals who just lost a battle. Bertha's mind races faster than her emotions. She isn't just afraid for George, she's afraid of what his weakness means for her position in society. She worked too hard, climbed too high, to fall now. We can see it in her eyes. Bertha will protect her family, but she also protect her status, no matter the cost. Asterisk, by the end of the episode, Bertha begins quietly asking questions of her own. She sends a letter, we don't know to whom. She meets with a servant in private. She even visits Mrs. Astor under the pretense of checking in, but it's clearer. She's gathering information, whether for George's safety or her own advantage, we're not sure yet. Asterisk, then there's Marian Brooke. Asterisk, Marian's role in episode 7 is small, but important. She still holds onto that mysterious letter she found, the one warning about danger. She hasn't told anyone, not Aunt Agnes, not George, not even Mr. Rakes, who seems to be trying to worm his way back into her life. Asterisk, there's a short but powerful scene where Marian returns to the church she used to visit as a child. She lights a candle, says nothing, and leaves the letter on the pew. That's it, but it's loaded with meaning. She knows something. She may be protecting someone. And for the first time, we're beginning to wonder, is Marian more involved in this mystery than we thought? Asterisk, next, the high society circle, always watching, always whispering. Asterisk, after the attack on George, the upper class doesn't respond. George's son finds himself caught between two worlds. He wants to support his father, but he's also trying to establish a life of his own, one that isn't defined by railroads and rivalries. In this episode, he quietly meets with an architect friend and considers investing in a new housing project. It seems innocent, but in this world, asterisk, episode 7 doesn't end with answers. It ends with open doors, half-truths, and rising tension. George Russell survived, but someone wanted him gone. And now, the entire Russell family stands in the line of fire. Asterisk, so what comes next? Will George strike back? Will Bertha discover who's behind the attack before they strike again? And what secrets is Marian keeping, and why? Asterisk, the Gilded Age is no longer just about class and climbing. It's about survival. Asterisk, if you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and drop your theory in the comments. Who do you think tried to kill George Russell and why? Asterisk, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with episode 8. Asterisk.